I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I couldn't resist. With all the microphone troubles I've been having, I had to make a slight joke about it. And of course, the first person in, of course, Sir Lance himself, Lance Chafin, says, Hiya, Thresh. Lance, I'm so glad you could make it. Hope you're feeling better. I know you're still under the weather. It is a mark of your patriotism that you are here tonight. Zublik says, and we are live. We are. Now, all kidding aside, I did not one, I did two little test videos with this microphone tonight, and it sounded okay to me. How's the sound? How's the volume? How's the resonance? Is my voice beautiful enough for you people? Tom Hungry Jerk says, hey, Bob. Hey, Tom, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. Zuplik says, what's with the smog? The smog? No smog. Oh, is the picture a little bit washed out? You know what it is? I tended to be a little, what's what I'm looking for? It seemed a little dark in the background. I was getting a lot of like shadowing issues, so I cranked it up a little bit. I may have cranked it up a little too much. After the show, I'll turn it down. I'm afraid that if I touch anything in that, I'll shut it down. But is the picture okay? You can tell that it's me. We'll go with that. Wajibin says hello, everyone. Wajibin, so great to see you. By the way, love the new jokes you've been like putting out lately. So great to see you. Kenneth Wilkinson says, good evening, Bob. Ken, good evening to you too. Zublik says, sound all right, video cloudy. It does seem a little over bright to me now that you mention it. Tomorrow I'll check with the video settings. But you guys remember I was actually getting things kind of dark here before. So let's see what else we got here. Keith E says, what? Jimmy Neutron says, am I late? No, just everyone was early tonight. Let's see what else. A lot of people having this fellowship. Does it seem washed out with you guys too? I mean, I could try to like lower the lighting down a little bit if it's too washed out. Let me know. I just figure, you remember the first videos with this? Everyone was saying it was so dark. I was actually turning lamps on in the background just to brighten it up a bit. If it's too bright, let me know and I'll see if I can like mess with it. Let's see what else we got. Tom says, met the Warriors Sunday. They were about 8 people from the movie there. Oh, I am green with envy. Did anybody go, Warriors, come out to play? Zublik says, yes, we can identify bodies. Liz Javen says, hit that like button. BK on the air says, hello there, everybody. Everybody say hello to BK. And if you haven't, subscribe to his channel. He's been putting out some absolutely great stuff. And he and I are going to be two, I bet you can't guess the third one, on Days Retropalooza tomorrow night, where we'll be talking about old Filmation cartoons. Lynn says, Thrash, how's Ian doing? Last time I talked to him, he's doing okay. He's going to call me again when he gets back to Tennessee. Georgia Iris says, hi, Bob. Hi to you, Georgia. Cindy D says, hello, everyone. Cindy D, so great to see you as always. And again, is the picture okay? Because like I said, I might try to dim it a little bit if anyone else is having the same problem Zuplex did. I can see how it's a little overly bright, but better than being too dim. Tom Ludrick says, can you dig it? I love that scene. You know, I'm going to have to break that movie out and play it on my new VCR. Let's just see what we got here. The book says, it looks like a Ridley Scott movie. I'll take that as a compliment. Keithy says, I hit the like button. Hello there. Anybody who said hello. Anybody who didn't, silly hello. That's okay. X. Cindy D says, I hope you're feeling better, Lance Chafin. I know that nasty flu's been hanging on. Daily Den, the good stuff, says, greetings from guess where? Yep, South Carolina. Daily Den says, it'll be fine. Thank you. Yeah, tomorrow I'll adjust it. Swing the hit, I always say. 3's the charm. One video I saw, and I'm going like this. I'm like, am I even in there? It was like something out of an Orson Welles movie. Jiffin says, Cindy, I am, but it's going slow. Jimmy Neutron says, Thrash, who's more of a sad and depressing character, Connor McLeod or Steve Rogers? Connor MacLeod really was a model in sort, particularly for a Scottish Highlander. Let's see. A lot of people saying hello. Zuplik says the camera is suffering from cataracts. You're on fire tonight, aren't you, Zoop? Well, anyway, we get 12 people on and 7 likes. That's pretty good. I think we'd do a little better. Oh, and by the way, I do have a trivia game tonight. Now, tonight's topic, and this was suggested to me, I paraphrase, but the short stories, we're going to be talking about short lived vintage American TV science fiction. That could be short lived TV series that you wish lasted longer. That could be made for TV movies you wish were extended into a series, or perhaps at least could have gotten a sequel. Documentaries. There were a couple of really, really awesome science fiction documentaries that I wish could have gone farther, been more like a Cosmos or something like that. So that's going to be the topic. But I thought to myself, doing trivia on short-lived science fiction would border on the cruel. I mean, if it was barely on, how could you get to know it well enough to be able to answer questions about it? So it's going to be on the Twilight Zone tonight, but it's going to be subjective. Let me give you an example. Instead of being like, who did this and who did that, which there will be some questions like that, a lot of them are open-ended. Like, name someone who was in a Twilight Zone episode and an episode of MASH. So you TV junkies out there should all have a fighting chance. But more on that in a few minutes. I want to make sure I don't miss any comments here. Ziplik says, hello, Cindy D. Sad to hear about your travail. I'm very sorry about your travail. James Dye says, hello, everyone. Daily Dan's good stuff says the Night Stalker. Kolchak, the Night Stalker, definitely. Cindy D says, thanks, Suplex. I appreciate that. Darrell Johnson goes, Bob. Bob goes, other brother Daryl. So good to see you. Daily Dan's good stuff says, Jamie Farr, I win. Was Jamie Farr in an episode of The Twilight Zone? Not saying he wasn't. Give me a second. Let's see what else we got going on here. A lot of people saying hello. Rob E.M., more commonly referred to on this channel as Bobby Renee, says hi, host and most. And hello to the doodah. And hello to you too, Bobby. Great to see you. Keith E says hashtag remind, wrong channel, but hey, if I could get his subscriber base, I'd let you. I'd let you make that misconception. Georgia Ayres says, what do you think of the War of the Worlds with Orson Welles and not Tom Cruise? I have the CD in its entirety and think it's absolutely amazing. The one with Tom Cruise I found to be a tragic disappointment. I could give you some details, but it's pretty much a top to bottom. And it's a pity too, because you could have gone some great ways with it. I will say one thing about the Tom Cruise installment. It is much better than the C. Thomas Howell made-for-TV version, which is virtually unwatchable. Jimmy Neutron says, I remember the adventures of Captain Zoom in outer space. I don't. Bobby says, hi, Daryl Sell. Azublik says, I remember about the Twilight Zone. All I remember about the Twilight Zone was Captain Kirk on the plane, Ingar Stevens and her dead soul, the Penguin and his books, and that's about it. You know, you actually have, based on what you've said, you have a fighting chance when I start reading the questions. Delegate says, I guess Jamie Farr was in everything at least once back then. He actually, well, you will probably know this because they've been re-showing the episodes of Kolchak recently. Jamie Farr was in an episode of The Night Stalker. He plays an anthropologist. It's that episode about the modern-day missing links. It's an X-Files was loosely based on it. But yeah, he was in a bunch of stuff. He did an episode of Andrew Griffith Show too. Cindy D says, hit the like button. Thank you. Daryl thanks Cindy for her support. James Dye said Orson Welles wasn't in the movie. He did the radio show in 1938. I think that's what she meant. I assumed, unless you were in fact talking about the George Pal 1953 version, Orson Welles wasn't in that. Robert Freese was. Not only did the narrations, he actually plays a newscaster during the first battle. But Cedric Hardwick does most of the voiceovers. Daily Dan says, of course I know that. And another like, thank you. Oh, Dan says, I watch T-Pawns on 2 phones, and I thank you twicely. Jimmy Neutron says Captain Zoom was played by Ron Perlman. And Michelle Nichols also played in that show. I've got to check this out. I love Ron Perlman. I love Ron Perlman. Oh, thank you, Zup. I said Robert Freese, didn't I? Yes, I'm sorry. Paul Freese. Paul Freese, best known for doing voice work on Rocky and Bullwinkle. But he did some of the narration in the War of the Worlds, the George Pal installment. Tom says, met Ann Robinson, who played Sylvia in the 56 War of the Worlds. 56. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. I kept saying 53 or 54, but it's 56. That was my 3rd convention back in 77. Big Guys 45 is here. He says, I'm here. I was going to post a little video song edit later tonight. That is awesome. Oh, and by the way, my wife found you on TikTok, by the way. Absolutely loved the video you posted with Mr. Miyagi in it. That was awesome sauce. She loved that film when she was a kid. I liked it too. I think it's great as well, by the way. But she was like, oh my God, that's it. And I go, yeah, it's a Karate Kid. But we watch some of your stuff. Great stuff, by the way, on TikTok. Folks, in addition to checking out Big Guys 45s here on YouTube, check him out on TikTok too, please. Dilly D on the good stuff said, sadly, Galactica only got 1 season. I know, right? Because none of us count. Galactica 80. Cindy D says, Beauty and the Beast TV version, Ron Perlman. That's, I think, my first exposure to Ron Perlman, but he was in some great stuff as well. He was in some old Benicio del Toro movies, one back in Mexico. He was in, well, we all know what Ron Perlman was in. Ron Perlman is great. I wanted to run for president, by the way. Mr. Lid says, hi, everyone. I am unfashionably late. Yes, but the sound quality is probably acceptable to you. Please say yes. I think I got it. Although Mr. Led, Zuber keeps complaining that I'm a little washed out. A little washed up, more like it. Thank you, Dan, for posting that link. A couple of links, by the way. The missing link. Lancelot link. Sorry. Let's just see. Gary Carpenter says, I'm here. Oh, how's the president's address going? Anyway, a lot of people having fellowship. And oh, Daryl Johnson points out, Quest for Fire left my ass off. I actually love that movie. I know. You know, Anthony Burgess actually did the dialogue for that movie. I'm not making that up. He actually wrote a special language for the early primate humans, and the script is actually based on the language that he wrote for them. Amazing, huh? But yes, Ron Perlman was in Quest for Fire. Mr. Lynn says, yes, a bit cloudy, but the sound is great. Yeah, we've established that. I think the remember, I was a little shadowy before. I turned up the lighting volumes, and I think I can fix that. But at least you can see me okay. I was going to mess with it, but I'm not going to. But hey, 3's the charm, huh? Ziblik says, Logan's Run wasn't that good a movie. It wasn't. It had its moments. Love the scene with Box in the ice cave. That's possibly my favorite scene in the movie. And I thought Peter Ustinov stole the ending, but I'd say I cannot say Logan's Run was a good movie. And it went crazy far from the books too, by the way. Oh, Tracy Russ Myers is here. Tracy, blah. How you doing? How you? Great to see you. Great to see you. And everybody's saying hi to Tracy. Daryl Jones says, "Foggy Bob, LOL." Um, you know what? Give me 1 second. Any better? I used a dimmer switch, which doesn't really work with these newfangled light bulbs, but if you guys think that's better, actually, to me, it looks more foggy. Is that more foggy? All right, I'm gonna give you guys a second to. I'm sure you people are frantically keying in whether it's good or bad. Oh, the same. Hmm. In that case, hold that thought one more time. When in doubt, best leave well enough alone. Oh, it was better before. Okay, then it's good that I put it back. So tell me, is this okay? We good? We happy? So anyway, Liz Javen says, Thrash looks a little misty. Look at me. I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree. Hey, you said misty. Diligent says now he's gonna fire up a blunt and show us some real fog. Hey, crazy man. Diligent says hum hum hum. Humpty dum. Keithy says, you look the same as ever to me. If I can improve that, I'd be really impressed with myself. The same, only darker. I'm going to leave well enough alone. Tomorrow I'll try with the light settings. Daryl Jones says, turn the light out and light a candle. What am I going to have, like a medieval live chat? Anyway, I think we should just. Zublik says the best. Let's just continue. Tomorrow I'll mess with the settings. Les Javen says, I didn't know Thrash was in the fog. Oh, Gary Carpenter says, he's no Mel Torme. I got that. The Velvet Fog. Love it. Love it. Okay, well, we're at 16 people here and 16 likes. 16 and 16 is 32. Let's just see. Okay, I'm going to give it just another minute before we start the live chat. Does everybody understand the concept of the live chat? Okay, I'm going to repeat it. Oh, Cindy D says, I can see Thrash coming in the air tonight. Ba-dum, 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 bum, bum, bum. I can feel it. So it's going to be Twilight Zone. And some of the questions are open-ended, which means there'll be multiple possible answers. So a few of the questions are actually subjective. If you are making a case, feel free to explain why. Like, the answer to your question is this because of that. That's fine too. And I'm also going to let you guys off the hook. If you can't think of the title, just say the one where the girl turns into the toad, or the one where the toad turns into a girl, or the one the girl turns the toad into something. You know, trust me, someone in this comment section will get it. And yes, Daryl, it's old school. It's the original. It's the Rod Serling Twilight Zone. And now a couple of them, because I was going through my research, I did find a couple of really cool factoids. So there are a couple that are like old school trivia, but most of them are stuff that anybody who's watched a lot of TV will understand. While we're at though, are there any other old school, old sci-fi TV shows that were canceled too soon that you guys miss, want to see more of, would like to see a new adaptation of? Otherworld. I don't know if you guys remember Otherworld. Otherworld, it's about a family. They're visiting Egypt. They go to a pyramid. They come out into another dimension, which is sort of like Earth, but different. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to find their way back to their Earth. and Michael Banks plays this. This alternate dimension is run by military dictatorship, and Jonathan Banks is sort of their Inspector Gerard. He's assigned with trying to track them down and killing them. So while they're looking for their way home, they're being pursued by him, and each week they go into like a different settlement, and it's like a confederacy where each zone is completely different than the zones. But I wish they'd bring that back because I thought that had unlimited potential. I was very disappointed when it was canceled. Zublik says the show is 60 years old. Oh, Zublik also, he said first, how the hell are we supposed to remember the titles? I said you don't have to. Say the one with the this or the one with the that. We all watch the show. We all know, oh, the one with this guy does that or that guy does this. You mentioned Burgess Meredith with the books. I knew exactly which one you were talking about. Work with me. Emily Miller is in the house, says, what's up, y'all? So nice to see Emily. Welcome to the party. Daily Dan says, I'm just gonna pick out some seeds and stems while you guys enjoy trivia. Sounds like a plan. Oh, Trey Meyer says, Fire Finland, Life on Mars. I actually never saw that show. Believe it or not, I remember it being on, but I never got a chance to see it. It was on against something else I watched, or I think I was working. Well, I normally work nights, so that probably just missed it. Dan says, Land of the Lost. I know they were actually talking about making a fourth season, but it was canceled last minute. I don't know why. Mandy LB is in the house. Says, hi, Mandy. Thank you so much for joining us. Gary Carpenter says, Buck Rogers. When they brought Birdman in, I stopped watching it. I thought the Birdman guy, I don't even know what the Birdman guy's real name was, but when they brought the Birdman guy in, I'm like, I can't do this. I don't know, a Birdman? Really? This is your new character? But up until the Birdman, I loved the show. And I liked the movie too. Daryl Johnson says, you're just in time for World War II test. Ziplik says, is it bigger than a bed box? Bigger than the bird box? Emily Miller says, wait, hold up, party at Dan's house. Gary Cameron says, Mandy, is there a Mr. Mandy? Mandy says, I miss you all. Mandy, it's so nice to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. Jimmy Neutron said, Voyager was a good show. That was short-lived sci-fi show. I liked Voyager. Emily says, great Daryl, I know nothing about it. Bobby Renee says, aw. Ken Wilkinson says, good evening to Emily. Cindy D says, you came and you gave. Let's just see. Zoomerblick says something. We don't pay attention to the titles. I thought we established that. But there's more. Oh, he also says we are not ready. Oh, we are not nerdy like Unapologetic Geek. Oh, Dan says Voyager went 7 seasons. Was it really that long? Georgia Ayres says, I'm sorry, but I must go, everyone. Georgia, thank you for stopping by. It was great having you. Take care of yourself. Hopefully you can join us. I'm going to be on Dave's tomorrow night, and then I have another show planned for Thursday. A lot of people saying hello. Oh, Lance Chapin says, where's Tug? Emily says, but I just got here, Georgia. I thought you were saying he's in Georgia. You know, Georgia's always on my mind. Gary Carpenter says Battlestar Galactica. I know it only ran 1 season because we don't count 80. Dan says, LOL, you're late to the party. Started January 1st. Still going. Thank you. Daryl Jones says, I'm telling you, let's take that vitamin D. I know vitamin C will help to drink a lot of orange juice. Let's just see. A lot of people saying goodnight to Georgia. We will miss you, Georgia. Thank you so much for stopping by. Mandy says, Starbuck. Um, if you're well, of course, you're referring to Battlestar Galactica. He was your favorite character in the first season. When I think of Starbuck, though, the one episode of Galactica 80 that I liked was the one that was based on Hell in the Pacific. And that's the one with Starbuck and the Cylon he repairs, voiced by Gary Owens. For some reason, I love that episode. The rest of that season, I don't. But there you have it. Daryl Jones says, "Where is Alex?" I'm guessing he's still with family ties. Sean Innes says, "Evening all." Sean, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you. Emily says, "I liked 80 because of Barry Van Dyke." A lot of people saying hi to Sean. Oh, Mindy says, "Yes, yes, I remember Thresh. Great episode." Yeah, I did like that one. That was the one episode of 80 that I did like. A lot of people saying hi to Sean. Um, okay. Oh, Gary Carpenter says, "Time Voyagers." I think I remember that show. It sounds familiar, but that's the title doesn't sound right. But I think I remember that one. Uh, oh, Daryl Johnson's the foundation. His name is Alex. Okay, I knew that. I forgot. Don't know the context. But thank you for reminding me because he actually prefers going by Alex. Teresa Rosmeyer says, "Max, my pug." Mix says hi. We'll tell your pugadoodle we said hi to him too. Tug is in the house. Says, "Thanks, Les. I almost didn't make it." Tug, I'm so glad you got here. Did somebody send him a Facebook message or something? Was that you, Lance? Either way, so glad you're here. Thank you. Mr. Lid says, "Thrash, do you remember Earth 2? I do, with Clancy Brown as a rare sort of badass as always, but a good guy like that. And that was a very short-lived show, but I did like that one. Dan gave us another link. Thank you. A lot of people saying hi to Tug. My connection is crap because I'm uploading the Outer Limits review right now. No worries. Glad you could make it. Book says there was a 60s show. I wish lasted longer, and it was The Cat. Don't recall it. Liz James says, "Emily, did you like Diagnosis Murder?" John Innes says, "Time Voyages was with the guy who accidentally killed himself with the prop gun." Oh yeah, right. Something. David Hexam. Yes, yes, yes. My wife, I guess, had a huge crush on him. Yeah, I do remember that show now. Thank you. I do remember it. Emily says to Lance, "I watched every episode." Mandy says, "Thrash, come on, I'm dying." So, like, Ved, Battlestar Galactica as a preteen. Well, I liked Battlestar Galactica when I was a kid. But again, the first season specifically, Gary Carmen says, "You remember the guy and the kid, he knew everything about time and he lost his book." Shannon says, "The Kurgan." Ah, yes, Clancy Brown is the Kurgan, possibly his signature role. Tom says, "Quark wasn't good, lasted less than a season." I thought Quark was very funny, by the way. And I had a science teacher who used to make references to the fact that a lot of stuff that was in Quark was actually solid science, believe it or not. Tug says, "Was I missing M? I had no idea." Emily Miller says, "Sean, that was just Voyagers." Okay, so that's the confusion. That's confusion. So it's Voyagers. That's what I thought because um, Dan was talking about Star Trek Voyagers earlier. That lasted 7 seasons. It was just the not Time Voyagers, just Voyagers, which I think only lasted 1 season. Okay, it's all starting to come together. Because yeah, when we were talking about Voyagers, I thought that was the show. But for when you said Time, of course, we're going back almost 40 years now. Let's just see. Jimmy Neutron says Captain Power and the Soldiers of the. I do remember that show vaguely. And Memo says, I probably watched a total of 5 episodes of Airwolf. Brian Cranston met his present wife watching while he was doing an episode of Airwolf. Ken Wilkinson says, I like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I saw every episode. That show lasted a fairly good amount of time. And of course, it was conceptualized based on what American post apocalyptic cult film? That's right, Night of the Comet. My favorite holiday movie. Dan says, my favorite 260 shows that I wish had more episodes. Invaders. Loved Invaders. I do love Invaders. And the Time Tunnel. Great one too. But I love the Invaders. That's the show. Remember I said that I thought it was like loosely based on well, The Fugitive, obviously, but it was conceptualized about by Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Zublik says, I wish they hadn't canceled The Man from Uncle. Great show. Tug says, Mr. Krabs. Arrgh! Yes, Clancy Brown is the voice of Mr. Krabs. Is that a riot? Let's just see. I think I just jumped. I did jump. Oh, here we are. Emily says, Kenneth, I looked Buffy was better than Angel. Okay. Gary Cameron says, The Powers of Matthew Starr. I think I saw like 2 episodes of that show before it got canceled. Sean Innes says, as a kid, I like Quark. I'm sure it doesn't hold up, though. No, I loved Quark. I thought Quark was great, particularly as a farce. I thought it was great. Ken says, me too, Emily. Mr. Lettis Clancy Brown is Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob. He sure is. Yes, he is. Emily Miller says, liked. Thank you. Tom says, I still collect Buffy memorabilia. Raw and Unprepared is in the house. Uncle Joe, how you doing? Good to see you. He says hello. Hello, Joe. How you know? Cindy D says, Gil Gerard is very cute in Battlestar. So was Aaron Gray. Nice looking people in space. Battlestar? You mean Buck Rogers, don't you? Don't you? Yeah, of course you do. All right, Tug says, I loved everything Clancy Brown does. He gave me nightmares in Carnival. I don't think I saw that one. Take your word for it. No. I painted myself into a corner there. Disregard. Zublik says they should have never canceled Johnny Quest. Well, they would have had to by now. It's very politically incorrect. Jimmy Neutron says Captain Power and the soldiers of the... Again, the soldiers of the what? Len says, Cindy, you mean Buck Rogers? Yeah. You catch on fast. Emily says, I'm guessing Joe is raw. Yes. Yeah. Cindy D says, love Matthew Starr, great show to Gary. Oh, Gary Kemper says, in addition to Angel and Buffy, Charmed as well. Dan says, Pons, say something about my superhero video. You got thank you for reminding me. For those of you who haven't subscribed to Dan's many channels, you've got to. He's been doing this whole spotlight on superheroes as of late, particularly superhero collectibles, not to mention collectible kaiju monsters. But he's been doing a whole series on collectible superhero comics and whatnot. It's very, very entertaining. Not to mention, you're going to check out, he had some werewolves or something in his backyard. And the man is out in pitch black the other night. And I got to tell you, the hooping and howling, that was freaking me out. I was just watching it. We have koi wolves up here, by the way, but they're not. But I don't know what you were listening to was not koi wolves. So you have to check out Dan's many channels, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. You shan't be disappointed. You know what, Dan? Give yourself some links so people can link to your channels. Tom says when Wilma Deering was a space vampire, she looked good. I love that episode, by the way. Emily says Charmed was the best of the 3. Charmed was a good show. Jimmy Neutron says Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future was made by the same guy who made Babylon 5. Harlan Ellison? Gary Cameron said Man from Atlantis. I love that show. Victor Buono as the recurring villain was great. And I just jumped again. Oh, here we are. Dan says The Invaders is one of the SGM hoes. I'm rewatch and now up to season 2, episode 4. Sounds like you got rid of all the buds and stems, haven't you? Tug says the series finale of the OG Quantum Leap was supposed to be a cliffhanger leading to a final season, but it got canceled. Bummer. You know what I always wish they'd do? I always wish they had done something, a two-part episode where he leaps, he's still there, and there's another guy who's also Sam, and Sam has to work with Sam to figure something out. I always thought that would be a good concept. They never did it though. Zublik says loved Quark. Sean Ennis says, what about Judson Scott in the Phoenix 81, 82? I remember Phoenix. I remember nothing about it, but I do remember Phoenix. He was the guy. Wait a second. He was the guy who was one of Khan's hence one of Khan's henchmen in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Was he not? Correct me if I'm wrong there. A lot of people talking about Quantum Leap. Gary Carver says, Sean, I really did like the Phoenix. Mandy says, David Archetti. Is that the gentleman's name? Thank you. Tug says, I recently got the entire series of Quantum Leap on DVD. Excellent. Ron Unprepared or Joe says, I still haven't checked out the new Quantum Leap. Me neither. Emma says, Christy Swanson is weird. Let's just see. Oh, Dilly Dan says, how about Werewolf 12 episodes? Then poof. Sean Innes says, Gary Carpenter, I swear I look at it like a game whenever I spot Judson Scott in anything like his small role in Blade. Oh, okay, I'll buy that. Emily Miller just jumped off the page. We're catching up on Teen Wolf. Not a bad series at all. Never saw the TV series. Mr. Lynn says Marky Post was smoking hot on Buck Rogers. Tom says years ago they were going to make Speed Racer a movie with Donny Osmond as Speed. Too bad. I love the Speed Racer show. Do you know the Racer X episode is considered one of the top 100 TV shows of all time? Gary Gabby says, I've got books on Angel, Buffy, and Charm. Tug says, Alien Nation needed more than one season. Definitely. Definitely. It was clunky, but it was finding its feet by the end. It was trying to cover too much ground in that first season. It was trying to enfranchise us. And I think it actually just tried a little too hard. But yeah, as you say, it was getting its feet by the end. Zublik says, if we don't believe hard enough, gang, T-Pawns will disappear. Say, I do believe in T-Pawns. I do believe in T-Pawns over and over again. And if you say it in a mirror in a dark bathroom, I can actually appear through. Never mind. I'll give you guys nightmares. Let's just see here. Emily says, is he a fairy now, Superplex? Well, haven't I always been? Dan says, oh, he's giving links. Great. Keep those links coming. He then goes on to say, laugh my backside off. Emily says, that explains the glitter. Dan says, fire in the hole! Oh, Gary Hinton says, message deleted by Dillian's the good stuff. Okay. Dan, thank you very much for being on top of that. Sean Innes says, Gary Carpenter, his appearance in Wrath of Khan always made me wonder if some of his performances ended up on the cutting room floor. Probably. And let's see what we got going here. Emily says Stockwell was a little haughty when he was younger. He does an episode of Twilight Zone, actually. Joe says, loved Alien Nation. Gary Carpenter says, I never seen that movie Speed Racer. I just remember the cartoon. Zublik says, they are both dead, Cindy D. Oh, that's tough. Dan says, ever seen My Mom with a Car? Yeah, Jerry Van Dyke started that one. Mandy says Rutger Hauer. I was just talking about um, uh, Blade Runner the other night. I loved him in Blade Runner. He was just amazing. Oh, Tug says Misfits of Science, of course. Joe says, I think Alien Nation is worth a reboot into today's reboot era. Why not? Give it another shot. Sean Innes says, Emily, he was a huge child star way back when and almost completely retired in the late 60s, early 70s. Stockwell came back hard in the 80s with, like Blue Velvet and the David Lynch films. I know that. I remember that was actually a big deal. The former child star. Yeah, he did The Boy with Green Hair back in like the late 40s, I want to say. Tug says, good call, Raw. If there is one show I would like to see revived today, it would be Alien Nation, more relevant than ever. Too correct. Gary Carpenter says, Geek, that was a great show if Dean Paul Martin hadn't died in the plane crash. And Rumor says, I saw him on a few black and white shows, and I was shocked. Lift Javen says, Thresh, get rid of my wrench. Get rid of your wrench? After the show, I'll get rid of your wrench, but I'm going to want to know why. I didn't say I wouldn't do it, but I'm going to want to talk to you why. Let's just see. You don't have to use it. Hang on to it. Better to have a wrench and not need it than blah, 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 blah. Let's just see. Oh, Gary Kemper says when Dean Stockwell was a kid, he was in the Thin Man movies. I forgot that. Cindy D says, I wasn't talking about Dean Stockwell and Dean Stanton Thresh. He told me they were both dead. Oh, I was talking about. Yeah, I see what you're saying. You were talking about Dean Stockwell and Dean Stanton Thresh. Okay, and yes, both of those have passed on. Harry Dean Stanton. Oh, oh, I was just talking about something he was in. He was in Godfather 2. I had completely forgotten that. But of course, he's in one of my favorite quintessential 80s movies, Repo Man. And Dean Stockwell, who's also passed on, he was great too. I loved him in all the David Lynch movies. Zublik says, has anyone seen Freaks by Alex Winter? A terribly underrated comedy? You think Freaks is a comedy? Jimmy Neutron said Speed Racer can get you dizzy because when the car spins out, it's in a POV shot. Huh. I'll have to try that. Let's just see. Tug says it's Harry Dean Stanton, and yes, he and Dean Stockwell are sadly gone. Yes, and you were correct on the full names too, by the way. Let's just see. He says I was born in 666. Emily Miller says okay, but have any of y'all watched Ryan Reynolds in The Voice? Holy Mother of Pearl, I haven't. Sorry. Zublik says Alex Winter's Freaks. We're still on that. Gary Carter says, Mandy, that number is bad news. Emily says, great, I'm buffering. Hopefully it'll be a temporary problemette. Tug says, there are multiple freaks. They're certainly here. Mandy says, you guys, Dean Stanton, U.S. baby boomer. But it's Harry Dean Stanton. And he was in Escape from New York, among other things. Cindy D says, Stanton was the dad in Pretty in Pink. Great role for him. He was the dad in Pretty in Pink? I haven't seen that movie in so long. He was the dad of one of them, I think C. Thomas Howell, in Red Dawn. But I don't remember him in Pretty in Pink. I'll take your word for it. Tom says, seen Freaks at a all-night film festival when I was a kid. Best way to see it. Jimmy Neutron says they eat applesauce to save the ozone layer. Why not? Wajamin says, I agree. Cindy. Joe says, waving my freak flag. Gary Cameron says, M to you, but it's bad luck. Wajamin says, Stanton was in the Green Mile. Tom says, freaks and geeks. Great retro TV show. It certainly was. Gary Cameron says, "Have you seen the remake of Red Dawn?" No, no. Um, so I can't speak to it. I heard it wasn't very good, but I haven't seen it. Shannon says Harry Dean Stanton, Molly Ringwald's dad in Pretty in Pink. He was buddies with Yaphet Kotto, R.I.P. 2 in Alien. Yeah. They played the two mechanics. They were great together in Alien. Lance Javen says, "Well, guys, enjoy the stream. Probably won't be back for a while. Sorry, Lance. I'll talk to you later. Take care of yourself. I'll talk to you later. Get some rest. I know you're feeling well. Take care." Tug says, "I'm guessing Zuper's not talking about Todd Browning, gobble gobble, one of us freaks." You never can tell with him. I'm sorry. Zublik says, "We are all freaks in a way," to Tom. Jimmy Neutron says, "What happened to Square Pegs?" Yeah, that was canceled after the first season. My understanding was there was rumors of drug usage among the underage staff, and people kind of went, so the negative publicity had it canceled. But the really cool New Waver, he too was in the Star Trek film franchise. Dilligan says, "One of my favorite shows that didn't make it was Cliffhangers, a show with segments like old serials, as in breakfast foods. No, the other one. One about a cowboy and a unemployed city and an underground city. One about Dracula and something else." Oh yeah, I remember the one about the underground city is actually based on an actual serial, which the name of it eludes me. Cindy D says, "Why, Lance? We will miss you." Yes, we will. I'm going to talk to you later, Lance. Don't worry. Evan Lewis says, "I'm back. I had to get my other phone." Mandy says, "Please report Man Talk." Is it Man Talk? Wajimine says, "Lance, please don't go." Tom says, "Because freaks come out at night." Zupaplex says, correct, Tug. Alex Winter's movie was in the 1990s, I believe. I kept wondering why you were saying Alex Winter. I wasn't sure if he was some anyway person behind Browning's. So you're talking about a totally different movie. Okay, I'm relieved. I was wondering why you were calling it Alex Winter's Freaks and why you thought it was a comedy. Well, we're halfway there. A lot of people saying goodbye to Lance. Mandy says Harry Dean Stanton. Yes, he's the one who passed on, as well as Gene Stockwell. Sean says Square Pegs also featured Merritt Buttrick, who played Shatner's son in Wrath of Khan. Sadly, passed away very young. Yes, he played the punk rocker. New wave rocker. Totally different head. Totally. In Square Pegs. Jimmy Durdun says, "What was the worst book to movie?" I Am Legend. The one was Will Smith. I could do an entire theme park to that disappointment. People have more. I'm sure there's more, but that, in my opinion, that one's the worst. Les Javen says, "Guys, I'm staying. You're like my family. See you guys more than my real family. Love y'all." Lance, thank you. Good. I'm glad you decided to stick around, by the way. We would have missed you if you had gone. Here's Johnny. And speaking of which, you know what? I think I'm actually going to dig it. Do you guys actually want me to start the trivia game? You know, we're about a halfway into the show. I'm going to start the trivia game. And if I might have to miss a few comments, by the way. If I do, please repeat them after the trivia game, and I promise I will review them. Tug says trivia. Oh, by the way, Tug, you were a little late. A lot of these questions are subjective. There'll be more than one adequate answer. If I'm not sure if you're right, please feel free to make a case. I tend to do this one very, very liberally. Also, it won't be an issue with you, I can already tell. But if you can't think of an episode that fits, feel free to say, "Oh, the episode with this guy," or "the episode where that happens." If you can't think of the title, because a lot of us, we know them by heart, but not by name. But I'm going to start with, in no particular order as always. Oh, actually, this one is very specific because I just absolutely love this little tidbit. The only woman to direct and star in an episode of The Twilight Zone. Yes, name the only woman who both starred in an episode and directed an episode of The Twilight Zone. I'm going to. Oh, Forum is Content is here. Says hi all, and Forum is Content. You just got here just in time for the first question. Oh, Sean says Elizabeth Montgomery. This I had to open with a toughy one, didn't I? So I'm gonna I'm gonna give you guys a second. And Beverly Garland, no. I'm gonna allow a couple more guesses. Oh, Mandy says Repo Man, Ordinary People, I Can't Stand. Jimmy Neutron says mashed potatoes. You're very close. Okay, I had to open with a tricky one, so I'm just gonna give this one to you guys. It's Ida Lupino, who directed Masks, which is one of my favorite episodes, but she also starred in the 16 millimeter Shrine, which, remember, Tug, you were just recently talking about Gloria Swanson? That episode is taken right out of Sunset Boulevard. Okay. This is a more subjective one. Name anyone who has appeared in not only a Twilight Zone, but another science fiction TV series or high fantasy concept TV series. So all you have to do, think of any person who started a Twilight Zone episode, but you could have also found in another series. Oh, Lance Chafin says, yes, Isla Pino was also in Food of the Gods, similar to the Twilight Zone. Oh, Gary Carpenter says Carolyn Jones. She didn't direct an episode. She was in one of my favorite episodes, which is actually going to come up later, so I won't say which one. But she did not direct any of them. Yeah, all right, you already got that one. William Shatner. Yes, William Shatner did many episodes of The Twilight Zone, and he was, of course, also in Star Trek, among many other sci-fi TV shows as well. Julie Newmar, very good. Yeah. Jack Klugman, excellent. Emily Miller says buffering. I'm not sure if buffering was in any of the episodes. Dan, yes, Nimoy, he did do one episode of Star Trek, The Quality of Mercy, and he was also in Star Trek. So yes, very good. Let's just see. Burgess Meredith, yes. Okay, so yeah, so you guys got it. Sean Innes says, was it Robert Redford in Twilight Zone? He played Death. Yes, he was. But name another science fiction TV series he was in, or high fantasy concept. Bill Mooney, yes. Ken says Bill Mooney. Form is Content says, ooh, Burgess. Yeah, he did some good ones. But yes, so you guys can consider yourselves having sufficiently answered that question. Here's another one. Alan says, who cares? Redford was pretty. Okay, next question. Name anyone who appeared in both the movie and the original TV show. I'll give you a second on this one. Sean Innes says, Thrash Pondo Ponds, don't think I can name a second sci-fi appearance for Redford. I'm having trouble even thinking of another TV show he was in. To be honest with you, I'm sure he did do another TV series at one point, but I'm having all the other things I can think of are movies. Even Barefoot in the Park, that was a theatrical film based on a stage play. I don't think it was ever. He wasn't in a made-for-TV version of it. Cindy D says the guy who played Dr. Smith. Yes, he was in The Twilight Zone, and he was in Lost in Space. Yes. Emily says the guy who died in the helicopter. Vic Morrow. Vic Morrow. Vic Morrow. The chopper. Vic Morrow. It's only 10 feet away. Too soon? My father taught me that. I'm very sorry. He's a very sick person. If I offended anybody, I apologize. Won't be the first time. Won't be the last. But I don't think Vic Morrow is actually in the original series. He was in the movie. A lot of people saying Jonathan Harris as well. I think a lot of people are still answering the TV show and other high concept shows, which is good. But how about anybody who was in both the Twilight Zone movie and the Twilight Zone TV series? Let's see. I'm going to see if anybody, because I know a couple of them, and there might be more. And I may have missed one or two. Form is Content, Kevin McCarthy. He was in. He was in the silver-haired guy in the cornfield episode. In the movie, I don't know if he did the TV show. I don't know. I know the people who were in that episode, but he may have been in there too, but I can't place it. You know what? I'm gonna give you half credit because I don't know. I don't think so, but Scatman Crothers, was Scatman Crothers in the TV series? I don't think so. Leonard Nimoy was not in the movie. Sorry, gang. All right. Shannon says Redford was in a TV series like Perry Mason, Naked City, Route 66, and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. I cheated and looked it up. It's not cheating if you're giving me the right answer. I'm going to count Hitchcock. So you know what? I'm going to give it to you. Yes, I'm going to count the Alfred Hitchcock show because that show kind of went off the rails. Tug says, does Rod Serling count? He appears in the eye during the opening of the movie. You know what? Yes, I'm going to accept that. But the two specifically that I was able to find during my research was Burgess Meredith in voice only, but he does the narrations. And of course, Bill Mumy, who's in It's a Good Life, or the adaptation in the feature film. He plays one of the assholes at the lunch counter in the beginning when the kid's playing the video game. Tug says, fair enough, M. I can't deny Redford was pretty, yes. Shannon says, LOL, yes, it counts. Thrash Bondo Pawns. Love the enthusiasm, Sean. Keep playing. Love it. Absolutely love it. Ziblik says, isn't the question who appeared in the movie and series? Yes, but I think people are still answering the old one because they're having so much fun with that one. There were a lot of people in the Twilight Zone who went on to do other science fiction, not to mention high concept fantasy or high fantasy concept. But Tug says, Bill Mumy, of course. How could I forget that? No, apparently a lot of people did. Dan says, Robert Redford movies, Pete's Dragon, Captain America, Legends of Badger Vance, and Avengers Endgame, among many, many others. Gary Carver says, Donald Douglas. I suppose if you count the Beverly Hillbillies as a high concept. Les Javen says, I guess Daryl left. Daryl left? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Emily Lewis says, okay, Morrow was in Alfred Hitchcock Presents, not Twilight Zone. Oh no, Daryl's still here. Yay! Oh, Mindy says, message retracted. Did a message retracted to you? Okay, so we got Bill Mumy and Burgess Meredith, so I'm going to move on to the next one. And this one, again, I just stumbled up on this factoid when I was doing my research. He's one of my favorite short story writers. Can anyone name the one episode of Twilight Zone written by Ray Bradbury? Yes. Ray Bradbury wrote only one episode. Can you tell me what it is? Mindy says Breakfast Club chicken pot pie. Are you referring to the scene where the kid's impersonating his father? It was turkey pot pie. Oh, Cindy D says, I got Dr. Smith too, Thresh. Yeah, Dr. Smith was a good one. He was actually in an episode I actually referred to a bit later on. So, yes, Dr. Smith definitely counts. Mandy says, detention. Lance Chafin says, Mandy sounds tasty. The chicken pot pie is. Forms consent says, just a guess, but did Bradbury write the Art Carney Santa one? No, good guess, but wrong. He only wrote one episode. How to Serve Man? Sorry, no. Jimmy Neutron says, if this be our final battle. Love the name, but no. Mindy says, I love you. Oh, you're sweet. Shannon says, Eve with Elizabeth Montgomery and Charles Bronson. Unfortunately, the name of that episode is 2. And no, and actually, I mentioned that one further on, so I can't actually um, tell you which one you're in reference to. But guess what, folks? Tug got it. It's I Sing Body Electric. Um, I Sing the Body Electric. He says the Body Electric, but it's I Sing the Body Electric. And there's a great post here on YouTube where it talks about the feud that went on between um, Ray Bradbury and uh, Rod Serling. Rod Serling had originally envisioned Ray Bradbury to be one of his main writers, and the studio got involved. And I'm not going to give you the details, but there's a great story as to why their relationship soured. It ended up only giving the one episode. But yeah, now a lot of people got the Body Electric. Good, good. Oh, BLB, so much Jake. I know I put your name. Sorry about that. But it says the Burgess Meredith Glasses episode. Um, Love that episode, but no, Bradbury unfortunately didn't write that. Uh, and let's just see what else we got here. We sang that in chorus. Not sure what you sang in chorus, but I'm sure it came out well. Dan says greetings. Mandy says I demand Gen X dot boomer. You'll always be Gen X to me. Mr. Lynn says that's called Time Enough at Last. Yeah, the one with the glasses, yes. Tug says I'm Gen X. I just grew up obsessed with the Twilight Zone. Haven't we all? Haven't we all? And but anyway, that covers the Ray Bradbury. Oh, this one you guys are gonna get off the chart. Name any actor or actress. Name any actor or actress to appear in more than one episode of the Twilight Zone original series. If you want to shoot for ones that appeared in multiple, go for it. But name as many as you can. Foremost Content says we older Gen X grew up with a lot of recycled boomer content. I know, because we grew up on cable TV, which was loaded with old TV shows on it. BLB says, Daily Dan's I think the Body Electric, I celebrate the me yet to come. Oh, right at the gate, James Best. Yes, he was actually in a couple of my favorites. But yes, James Best was in several. Tug says Burgess Meredith was in several as well. Zuplik says Ingar Stevens. Yes, yeah. Shatner. Emily Miller says Shatner. Mindy says, "Oh, come on." A lot of people saying Shatner. Led says Shatner. Tom says Shatner. Mandy says, "Name some Brat Pack actors. They weren't in the Twilight Zone." Oh, that was my pick. Jack Klugman. Sean says Klugman as well. Emily says Rod Serling. I don't know if he actually. Well, you know what? Yes, he was the narrator in every single episode. So you know what? I'm going to give you that one. Yes, but he didn't star, but he appeared. I'm going to give it to you. Mr. Litz says Klugman. Yeah, Doug says LOLM. Excellent answer. Yes, I know. Cindy says Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood. I'm racking my brains. I know he was in Rawhide and did do other TV shows. I don't think he was in The Twilight Zone. And I am racking my brains. If you can think of an episode he was in, please let me know. Yeah, BLB says Rod Sterling. Yes. Texas George Mitchell. Not familiar with the episodes. Mr. Lynn says Sterling was not the original narrator of the Twilight Zone. Really? Wow, you got me on that one. Jimmy Neutron says a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. Now, when I was a kid, I thought it ate purple people. So I figured I was safe since I was not a purple person. The flying people eater would not eat me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's just see. And Miller says, did Cloris Leachman do more than one? She may have. Zublik says, Bert Muslin. He may have done more than one episode. I can't place multiple episodes, but he may have. Gary Carpenter says, J. Pat O'Malley. Les Javen says, my favorite was Talking Tino with Telly Savalas. That's a freaky episode. Zublik says, Dub Taylor. Sean says, Clint Eastwood credits don't show any Twilight Zones, but one Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't think. Oh, Tug says Lee Marvin. Yeah, he was in a couple. Excellent. Anyone else want to hazard a guess? Mr. Lynn says, the original guy had other obligations. He did the pilot, but couldn't continue, so Rod took over. Learn something new every day. Dan says the Encounter episode 151, The Twilight Zone, starring Clint Eastwood. Only one I could find. The Encounter 151. I'm going to have to check it out. Jimmy Neutron says Troy McClure. Cindy D admits Clint Eastwood was just a guess. A good guess. But I don't think so. Foremost Content says, I can reuse Kevin McCarthy. He was in 2 Twilight Zone episodes. You certainly can. Zublik says, Elijah Cook Jr. He did a lot of TV back then, but I'm not... You know what? Maybe. I don't know. I honestly can't remember. Tug says, I remember him from such episodes as... Mandy says, oh, we are remembering our childhood, aren't we always? Oh, Emma says Claude Atkins. Yes, Claude Atkins did a bunch of them. Yes, he did. Mr. Lynn says James Colburn. He was in one of my favorite episodes, which again I referred to later on, so I can't mention it. And Lance Chafin says the one where Donna Douglas, where she was the ugly one in the alien hospital. That one's crazy. That one's crazy. And the funniest thing at the end, when she's running through the hospital and she actually meets this guy who's like a hunk, and she's like freaked out by him. She thinks he's ugly. I was just thinking about that today too, because the great thing about that is not only do they think she's ugly, but she thinks other people we consider normal are ugly, which shows that their vision of beauty has sort of trickled down over her, you might say. But I'm going to move on to the next question. Ooh, this is a good one. And it refers to about a half a dozen things you people have been talking about for the last 20 minutes. So I'm going to ask, name someone who not only wrote, but also directed multiple episodes. And don't say Rod Serling, because I'm looking for someone other than Rod Serling, who I don't think actually directed any. I think he wrote the screenplay. I don't think he directed them. Regardless, name someone other than Rod Serling who both wrote and directed episodes of the original Twilight Zone. Give you guys a second. I'm sure you're all frantically typing or looking up IMDb. So I'll give you a second. See what the next question is. Oh, that one's a good one. What can you believe? We have like 4 questions left. That's crazy. Sean Ennis says Don Siegel. Sorry, no, but Jimmy Neutron says Mr. Montgomery Burns. You're so close. You are so close, and I know you know it. I know you're just being a wise guy. I know you know it. Tug says I know Richard Matheson wrote a bunch of them. Did he ever direct one? I don't think so. Gary Carpenter says Robert Montgomery. You're getting you know what? You're so close. I'm just going to give it to you. The Montgomery is right. Robert Montgomery was Elizabeth Montgomery's father, and he had his own show for a while, and he did do writing and directing. But the name we're looking for is Montgomery Pittman. Monty Pittman, who, of all things, is Sherry Jackson, the cutie from the Star Trek episode What Little Girls Are Made Of. From that, he was her stepfather. And he actually wrote and directed episodes. He directed one of my favorites. We were just talking about it, 2. Speaking of Elizabeth Montgomery, she was in that. The Grave of Jeff Myrtlebeck, or I'm sorry, the last rites of Jeff Myrtlebeck, and also The Grave. And he also, in addition, he also wrote Dead Man's Shoes and another one that the name eludes. Oh, Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? Which actually, long story short, Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up was actually, it takes place, there's a shuttle bus which ran between Albany, New York, and Boston, Massachusetts. I used to ride it frequently when I was going to school out in the Berkshires. And there's a bridge in a town called Orange, Mass, which I am convinced was the setting for, because right by the bridge is this like little like donut shop cafe thing. And I'm like, holy cow, I wonder if this was what he was writing about when he did the episode Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? So yes, Monty Pittman is the gentleman who actually both wrote and directed, and Tommy Wright, Sherry Jackson, yow. Yeah. Oh, Tug says he directed a bunch of episodes of Maverick. I remember correctly, my parents watched a lot of Maverick. I believe that. Tugs, Big Guys 45 says, night, folks. Night to you. Big Guys, take care of yourself. Let's see. So we'll go to the next one. So, name any episode of The Twilight Zone which may be considered autobiographical to Rod Serling. Let me elaborate. If you know anything about Rod Serling's backstory, a lot of stuff he wrote to what he knew about. And sometimes even episodes that he didn't write himself, he picked because they reminded him of things that spoke to him personally. Name, if you know anything about Rod Serling, you could pick out a couple off the top of your head. Name any that you think would fit this description. And I'm going to scan down. The one with Burgess Meredith? Well, there were 4. The Obsolete Man? I don't think so. Time Enough at Last? No. Formless Content? That boxing one? The one with Lee Marvin or the one with Ivan Dixon? Emily Miller says, the one about the writer who made things come to life. Maybe. Requiem for Heavyweight? Possibly. Formless Content says, I had to dig deep in my head for that one. Possibly. Zublik says, where his glasses were broken. Oh, so you think Rod Serling survived World War III? You know what? I'm going to give it to you just for persistence. You know what? And I'll give you a Requiem for a Heavyweight too. The one about the writer that made things come to life. I don't know if anything Rod Serling wrote came to life, but you know what? I'm going to give it to you. Mr. Lid, though, does hit a nail on the head. The Quality of Mercy, because of his experiences as a ranger fighting the Philippines during World War II. Mr. Serling always felt as though the importance of World War II, I don't want to say justified it, but he saw the need for the conflict and the need to stop the fascists. But he was always very, very, very anti-war and lamented the need for this conflict, which destroyed so many lives. And yes, Quality of Mercy would have played to him directly. Shannon says, I went to the college Rod Serling taught at. His production company was Cayuga Productions, autobiographical, no clue. It's a very interesting fact, thank you. Gary Gabriel says, sorry, I don't know nothing. Jimmy Neutron says, 21 Jump Street. Jim Luke says, yep. Emily says, the ones about war. Yes, the ones about war. I'll give it to you. Liz David says, Gary, me too. Tug says, oh, good call, Mr. Led. Minnie says, reader whose glasses broke. A lot of people think he survived a global conflict, like a nuclear war, but okay, if you know, I'm one to give it a consensus. I don't see it, but he may have identified with the guy personally. Gary Carpenter says, I never did like the Twilight Zone. Now he mentions it. Joe says next up Willoughby. You know what? Yeah, that and The Walking Distance and anything set in those like idyllic small towns of yesteryear. He suffered from almost unendurable nostalgia. He felt as though the peaceful bygone days of the past were gone. He had these like beautiful remembrances of his very, very young life and lamented that we could never go back there. And hence the walking distance. He longed to go back to the quote unquote simpler time. Of course, let's face facts. As Billy Joel said, the good old days weren't always good. Or even better, as Saul says in um, Soylent Green, hell no. People were always rotten. But I think I've beaten that question to death. So I'm going to go on to the next. Ooh, speaking of post-apocalyptic films, Omega Man director Boris Segal directed 2 episodes of The Twilight Zone. Name one of them. And by the way, Boris Segal is the father of Katie Segal from Married with Children and Sons of Anarchy and many other things. And Mr. Lynn says The Bewitching Pool. I can certainly see that. As far as Serling reminiscing. Here we got some here. Jonathan says the looks I recently saw a hilarious bit Dana Gold did on marriage. Gary Carter says, just give me the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew anytime. Tom says, those night gallery artwork goes for big bucks, I can imagine. Zublik says, no idea. I didn't follow directors of TV episodes. Jimmy Norton says, fingers in lakes. Lynn Craven says, Gary loved those shows. They were on YouTube. Tug for the win. The Arrival. Yes, The Arrival. And the other one, and a lot of you people knew that Dr. Zachary Smith or Jonathan Harris was in the original Twilight Zone. One of the episodes he did was The Silence. He plays the lawyer in The Silence. That's the other Boris Segal episode. Oh, and I think we may have already covered this, but I'm going to throw it out anyway. Besides Rod Serling, name another Twilight Zone writer. And please don't say Ray Bradbury. But name another writer. Matheson, Tug, for the win. Yes. Richard Matheson, who wrote I Am Legend. Let's see who else we got. Hitchcock? Ellison? Did Ellison write an episode? He wrote for Outer Limits, but I don't think he wrote an episode of The Twilight Zone. And Mandy, I'm sorry, Hitchcock didn't write an episode of The Twilight Zone. He was writing for his own show at the time. A lot of people guessing Ellison. Let's just see. Well, we got Richard Matheson. And, another one I would have accepted was, of course, Charles Beaumont. Charles Beaumont wrote a whole mess of them. Oh, Tug says Chuck Beaumont. I have no idea to spell it. Close enough. Okay, and last question. And this is totally subjective. Name an episode of the original Twilight Zone which has been adapted into some other made-for-TV movie, TV show, whatever. Or, as a consolation prize, name an episode you'd like to see adapted. So basically, name an episode of The Twilight Zone. Sean Innes says, Thrash Pondo Bonds, you are correct. Can't find Ellison on IMDb for The Twilight Zone. Thank you. Appreciate that. Mandy says, Thrash Ponds, you're going Yenter. Yenta. I'm a Yenta. I'm setting up young couples to get married. I've had worse careers. Let's just see. Zublik says Captain Kirk in that plane. Yes, that was redone in the movie. Oh, Liz Jefferson says Thrash. Ian's here. Ian C, you're with us. How you doing, bro? Good to see you. Glad you could make it. Dan says, SP, now for something completely different. Hey, Pons, did you hear about the $1 billion pirate treasure found off Cape Cod featured on the TV show Beyond Oak Island last week? They found it. They've been looking for that treasure. It's pretty close to Cape Cod. It's actually closer to Canada. But they have been looking for that treasure for 60, 70 years. It's crazy. They were campfire stories about that treasure when I was a kid back in the 70s. And some of the legends, they said the Holy Grail was there. They said various crown jewels of various courts were there. If it was missing, it was at Oak Island. I did not know they finally found it. And you said they got a billion with a B? That's awesome. Well, they finally found it. Tug says, I would love to see the Midnight Sun revisited. I can certainly see that. That was actually based on a short story, and I always felt that they probably had to. Amazing episode it was. I always thought that they probably had to trim it. So I'm always sure like the story itself would have been fleshed out a little better in the actual short story. Cindy says Earl Hammer Jr. was a writer thrash. Oh, name an episode. I can't think of any episodes he did off the top of my head. Please mention. Emily Miller says The Truman Show. Mandy says The Twilight Zone Deer. Zublik says You Are in Our Thoughts, Ian C. Lance Javen says Yes, Ian. Tug says 5 characters looking for an exit was rebooted into a episode of The Next Generation. That's amazing. Let's just see what else we got going on here. Gary Carpenter says AI. Gerald Jones says good grief. It's all BS. Mindy says you are so cool. Brewster, you are so cool. Jimmy Neutron says Oak Island. Shannon says maybe the episode with Burgess Meredith and the broken glasses in a post-apocalyptic nightmare. Last Man on Earth. Actually, I would just like to resurrect Burgess Meredith. I can certainly see that. He was a national treasure. Ian, how you doing? Retro Serious says, thank you, everyone. I'm doing okay. Ian, I'm so glad you could make it tonight, by the way, and I'm glad you're doing okay. Thanks for joining us, bro. Gary Cameron says, Earl Hammer, the Waltons. Okay. So Luke says, Legend of Oak Island is about as real as the Fountain of Youth. Well, they've been looking for something there since the 50s. Cindy D says, yes, he right the Walton. Shannon says Zuplex agreed. Tug says I've talked a lot about the occurrences at Owl Creek Bridge and how it was inspired a ton of other stuff like Jacob's Ladder. I can yes, yeah, that one was that episode was crazy. That was like when I was young. Wajibin says good to hear it. Ian Dan says not the Oak Island treasure. They found a pirate ship in 60 feet water off Cape Cod? No. They've been looking for that one for years. There's a place, it's called the Wadia Museum. And they were looking for it. They've been looking, a buddy of mine was just talking about that about a month or two ago. That treasure? Worth $1 billion? Huh. Maybe we're speaking figuratively, but I hadn't heard about the Cape Cod treasure. I'm going to look into that. I'll talk to Ted tomorrow because he stays on top of stuff like this. Len says, Ian, take as much time as you need. We will still be here when you return. Zublik says, there are lots of people in the Good Stuff live chats you can call upon Ian C. Daryl Jones says, treasure has finally been found on the Curse of Oak Island in the form of a brooch containing a 500-year-old faceted gemstone, red gemstone. Mandy says, I'm laying next to elderly cat love and talking abuse. Okay. Retro Serial says, Ian says that's for sure. Tug says, the real treasure is all that reality TV money. Daryl says, I've been sending that whole to keep the viewer. I've been sending that hole to keep the viewers. Cool. Dilly Dan gave us a link. Oh, thank you very. Oh, to Retro Serial. Thank you very much. Cindy D says the Hunt was written by him. Thank you, appreciate it. Zublik says that is just the way those hucksters make money. Ian says we need to do a podcast and Ellis on pop music. Oh, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. Mandy says, "Oh, you're so cool, Brewster." Of course, thank you for getting that. It's a reference to Fright Night, one of my favorite action comedy horror movies of all time. Texas, and we still need to do that Lost talk, Ian. I'm always looking. I'm always up for it. Love you, man. Count me in as well. Count me. When Lee and I first started, we were actually started doing collaborations. We were doing Lost episode by episode. Let's just see. Tug says, "LOL, Mandy." Bean says, "LOL, Mandy." Dan says, "Watch the TV show on history called Beyond Oak Island, where they look for other stuff." Oh, is that what Beyond Oak Island is? I thought it was just like the next level of Oak Island. I do watch the History Channel, but I never watched that show. Cindy D says, "Pop, pop, pop music. Talk about pop music." That song was just on the radio the other day. It's like an earworm. I was like singing it all night. Gary Cameron says Brewster's Millions. Different movie, but love it. Jimmy Neutron says Captain Zero was a great vintage science fiction shows. Ian says at Tug, yes, Lost, and MST3K. Oh, I'm all over that. Mindy says, yes, and I love you, Thrash. Oh, the feelings bother me mutual. Gary Carpenter says, I like Captain Planet better. Zublik says they should imprison all of those phonies from the History Channel. Huh? Remember, those who control the past control the future. Those who control the present control the past. And let's see wow, we just jumped while I was pontificating. Daryl Johnson says, I agree, David. And he then goes on to say, we should take a Stalinist approach to cable television. Wow, I don't think we should take a Stalinist approach to anything. You know what that guy was up to? Read the Gulag Archipelago. Actually, don't. It's not fun. But he was a very, very mean person. Very mean person. Says, tell us how you really feel, Zuper. I know, right? Dan says, I like the Planet of the Apes TV series, but it didn't last long. That's actually where we came in. We were talking about short-lived sci-fi. I love that show. My best friend who lived across the street, I was like 7. We used to get special permission to stay up to watch that because it was sort of just past our bedtime mode. And we would alternate. I'd go over to his house and bring the snacks, and the next week he'd come over to my house and he'd bring the snacks, and we had a ritual. And if we were good, we could actually stay over and run home and have breakfast before school, before the bus got there. But having a sleepover on a weeknight, that was a huge deal. And when they canceled it, my childhood ended. I'm genuinely sad right now. Sean says, Superlex, I worked at AETN years ago, A&E history, it's set. You are not wrong. Wow. Superlex says, I just did. Tell us how you really feel. Retro Ian says, we need to do one on WWF too. Well, gee, who will we have help us with that? I have met Al Snow and Junkyard Jim Duggan. Jim says, I did T-Pawns, very enlightening. Daryl Jones says he was worse than Hitler. He was pretty bad. Gary Carpenter says, Z, you should do a Watch Weird History. I like it's on YouTube and is so speakeasy. Tug says the Planet of the Apes show was just too expensive to keep going. It was also running against, it was a Chico and the Man and Sanford and Son. It was running up against two of the biggest sitcoms of the day. And face facts, science fiction up against sitcom, the sitcom is always going to win. So Luke says, I also read Robert Conquest book on the Great Purge. Crazy. Let's see what else we got here. Mr. Lynn says, WWF, yes, I am in. Gary Cameron says, Dan, don't forget the cartoon series. Too true. Mandy says, hi, I like people who recognize love lines from Fright Night. Jimmy Neutron says, Ivan wasn't so terrible. Superlook says, you can argue with the point. Daryl. Joe says, what are your thoughts on Shatner's Trek series? I haven't seen it. I'll be honest with you. I'm old school, so I haven't had one or two chances, but I just never get around to it. Mr. Lynn says, Thrash, are the questions done? Yes. Yes. In fact, pretty much the show is going to be done in a few minutes. It's pretty much 9:30 here. But I'll scroll through because I want to see if we have any. Big Guys 45 says, my video is ready. Uploading it now, but I'm still not going to post any more stuff after this particular upload. Sorry. Oh, John Collins just got here. Drat. And not that you got here, John. We're just wrapping things up now. I'm so glad you could make it, but we are in the process of wrapping up. So, John, thank you for joining us, and enjoy us in replay. Forms Content says, talked about Elizabeth Montgomery, reminded me of her Lizzie Borden TV movie. Man, I was too young to be watching that one. Arraigned but acquitted. Sean Innes says, Lance Chafin, although I despise J.J. Abrams, I did like Fringe. Anna Trove is awesome. Loved her in Mindhunters on Netflix. And now The Last of Us. I like The Last Hunters. I do like The Last of Us, by the way. I've seen all 4 episodes. I can't wait for it to actually kick in, if you know what I'm saying. John Collins says, Bob, your picture seems a little hazy tonight. We were talking about that earlier. My picture was a little dim. So some people have heard this about 6 times already. Long story short, I was messing with the settings and I increased the brightness. I may have gone a little too bright on the camera. But I'm going to try to fix that for next time. Remember, I'm doing another live show this coming Thursday. And you can see me on Dave's Retropalooza 3 tomorrow. We talk about Filmation cartoons. But at this point, I think I'm going to call it a night, folks. I want to thank you guys all for joining. As always, I had an absolute blast. Even when the questions don't go as planned, I had an absolute blast. You guys are great. And to those of you who couldn't make it tonight and you're watching this in replay, thank you for just combined replay. That's great too. But there are a lot of you that we do miss when you're not here. So hopefully we'll see you again in the next show. And until the next show, be good, be safe, be careful. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again very, 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 very soon. Peace.